Alright, good day and welcome back. Today we're going through your post-prelim practice paper 1. So for this paper, you will need to use a bit more of your inference as well as your concepts that you've gained. Now, I will be going through this paper in a very thorough manner, so please annotate and copy down everything. I will also be thinking out loud so you will know that what's going through my mind when I'm doing this paper. Okay? Now, first question 29. Zachary found some mosquito eggs in a dry container as shown in the diagram. So, first things first, I see mosquito, I see eggs. So, first things first, I will always want to identify what is the topic and then what is the concept of the topic that is being tested. So, obviously, if you ask me, when I see mosquito eggs, straight away, it will actually hint me to the part whereby my concept is probably on life cycle. Okay, sorry, topic should be life cycle. And then my concept that they are testing on is probably the different life stages of a mosquito. Okay, and if you take a look at this other thing, right, you will notice that one other interesting point is that they pointed out it is a dry container. Now, if you really think about it, one of the most interesting part about the mosquito life cycle is that part of it is in the water. And even though it's in the water, the question specifically mentioned that it is a dry container. So when you think about that, you obviously need to address the part about it being dry and why that's no good for the mosquito, right? So when you think about it in that sense, you'll probably realize that because part of the life stages of your mosquito is in the water, so having a dry container isn't going to cut it. Okay, your mosquitoes won't be happily breeding there. So that's what comes through my mind, the first thing I see, even before looking at the question. And then after that, they say, when the container fills up the water, the eggs will hatch. Explain why adding water to the container would help the eggs to hatch. Now, this paper needs a bit more of inference, meaning that based on what you understand on your prior knowledge, okay, of the topic that you were taught. Okay, now obviously when you read it like that as a layman person and you don't really make reference to what you've learned, the first thing you'll be thinking is maybe there's some special activating properties of water. Maybe when the water touch the egg, the eggs will be activated, something like that. But you see, that was not what you were taught in schools, right? So you have to relate it to what you were taught about life cycles of a mosquito. And that is the pupa as well as the larva stage is actually in the water, right? So you know that both your larva and your pupa, okay, these two stages, right, is in water. So the sensible way to go about doing this is to phrase or to craft your answer according to this part over here. So you know that your pupa and larva cannot survive if there's no water, and hence the eggs will not hatch. Alright? So how would you say this? Now, it is not good enough to just say the young. Okay, that is very non-specific. Because we're all science learners, we're all learners of science, you need to start using very specific answers. So it will look like, okay, the larva and pupa stages of the mosquito cycle is spent in the water. So that's 1 mark for telling me that. And then where does your second marking point come in? The second marking point comes in when you tell me that, hence without water to live in, the larva and pupa will die. Okay, so you have to tell me the consequence. So when you think about it, right, why would the eggs not hatch when there's no water? So when there's no water, very straightforward, already no water, right? Why would I want to hatch? You know, Mother Nature is a wonderful thing like that. If the conditions aren't right, in the first place, you already know immediately when your eggs hatch, there must be water. Yet it is dry. Obviously, your eggs aren't going to hatch simply because there's no water for the young to survive. Right? So this is where you need to make the inference from your prior knowledge and form the links. Okay, moving on. A bite from the female mosquito, adult mosquito, can cause a virus to enter and infect the human cell as shown below. Now, whenever you come to life cycle, right, I stress again, life cycle. I'm going to put this as a key point in orange. Different stages have different characteristics. And this part is very important. Why? Because a lot of times students fail to explain, okay, or realize that in their answer, right, it is very important to state whether is it the mosquito, the larva, or the pupa, okay? Now, it is only the female mosquito that can go around biting people, right? Because your larva and your pupa spends its lifespan in the water, okay? Not out of the water. So if you tell me, oh, the mosquito is going to breathe in the water, you're wrong. Or you say, oh, the larva will go around, or you even say, if let's say you use the word it, what does it mean? It can mean the larva, it can mean the pupa, it can also mean the mosquito. It's very important that you're clear about which stage you're talking about. Let me give you another example. Say we're not talking about mosquito, we are talking about plants. As you know, right, plants can photosynthesize, right? But then again, your seeds, they can't. They need to first germinate, and then the true leaves need to appear first. Okay? Another example would be reproduction. Reproduction can only happen in the adult plant stage, right? Where the flowers have occurred. Other than that, you can't. So that's why I'm pointing as an important point, because many students have failed to realize that, okay, not just for this question, but in totality when it comes to life cycle questions. Okay, let's move on. Name, okay, the cell part that the virus has to pass through, okay, to enter the cell. So this is actually a question on what? Cells. And remember I told you for cells, it is very important to know, to be able to identify the parts and its function. These two must come hand in hand, and it can only be memorized, no other way. So if you're not hardworking enough to go and memorize it right, then I'm sorry. Okay? When this kind of content question come up, right, that's it. You won't be able to answer. So looking at it, you would have already known that it is this structure over here. This is called your cell membrane. Okay, so answer cell membrane. This is very straightforward. Now, what is the function? See, exactly what I told you. It needs to come hand in hand. Okay? Now, a lot of students are using the wrong keyword. Please do not use the word allows. Okay? No. The word here is control, because allow sounds very frivolous. Okay? Your cells are structured in such a way that is highly selective in allowing certain things to enter and not. If not, you'll be infected by a lot of different kind of viruses, not just your coronavirus, but many others. Okay? So basically, it controls what goes in and out of your cell quite specifically. So the word, please do not use allow. That's the first thing. And the second thing I want to caution all of you, your English, the way you phrase is very important. Some of you said that the cell membrane controls the substances that enters the cell. That is different from the cell membrane controls substances moving in and out of the cell. You see the difference? The first one, the former one, tells me that you're talking whatever substance that enters the cells is being controlled by the cell membrane. It's as if the cell membrane is now a remote control for anything that enters the cell. Okay, you need to be careful of your English. It's important because once the meaning change, even though you got your keywords there, your key idea changes, we cannot award you the mark. Okay, so how does it look like? It controls the movement of substances entering and leaving the cell. Alright? So be very careful of these keywords. Moving on. Okay, so the diagram below shows the cross-section of fruit X. So once I see the word fruit, straight away, some things that signal me in my mind, okay, the topic over here, if you ask me, should be reproduction in plants. Well, concept, I'm still not so sure. But at least it focuses my mind. Okay, so are they talking about the flowers? Are they talking about the seeds? Are they talking about seed dispersal? Okay, what are they talking about? Come, let's move on. Then after that, they tell me structure X helps fruit to be dispersed by water. Okay, so I know it's talking about plant repro, okay, the part on dispersion. And liquid Z contains nutrients for the seed. Okay. In the table below, state what structure X is and how it helps fruit X in its dispersal. Okay, now, so we're talking about dispersal here. Now, sometimes we also need to be a bit smarter. You look at this, right? Sometimes you can relate it to your prior knowledge. Right off the bat, I'm looking at coconut. I mean, not all the case, but you know, in this case, you know that, hey, this is a coconut. And you know that coconut is dispersed by water. And you also learn that, you know, this particular fruit is something that's very common in your syllabus. We have talked about it so many times. In fact, when it talks about dispersal by water, more often than not, it's always coconut and no other fruits. And the reason why it's able to be dispersed by that is actually it has a fibrous husk. Correct? So even without looking at it, right, straight away I'm thinking, must be the high fibrous husk. But I need to confirm, okay? I cannot be complacent. So I look at it, and I look at this part over here, okay, that they're talking about, which is structure Y. Does it look like fibrous husk? Yes, sir. So the answer is, it is the fibrous husk, which most of you got it correct. Okay, that's good. Okay, and how does it help fruit X in its dispersal? So they already give you some hint already, right? Okay, so okay, I like that you're actually tells me that it traps air or contains air. Very good. So it basically traps air or contains air. Sorry. Okay, float. So this question, pretty well done. Next. Okay, now this is the part that was very terribly done. So look at the question. Liquid Z is important to fruit X for germination. So I've got the keyword germination. When I see here the word germination, straight away it'll be WOW. And then I know that W stands for water, O stands for oxygen or air, bracket air. And then after that, my last W stands for warmth. Okay, these three items needs to be present in order for germination to happen. So it says that, okay, liquid Z is important for fruit for germination and before its leaves are fully developed. So when I think about leaves are fully developed, I would start to think about, okay, the leaves are needed for photosynthesis. So if let's just say the leaves are not there, then my photosynthesis cannot occur. So if it cannot occur, then I will have no food. So if there's no food, then why do you think liquid Z is important? So if I go back up and I take a look at it, okay, it tells me that liquid Z contains nutrients. So in this case, since Z contains nutrients, it must be a source food before the leaves can develop. Okay, then I move on to read. Give a reason why is it important for germination. So like I said, for germination, I'm only interested in WOW. So it's a liquid. So we have to understand that a liquid probably contains water. And water happens to be something that you need for germination. So therefore, you have to tell me that your liquid Z provides water, okay, to enable the seed to germinate, right? Not nutrients. And you have to specifically tell me, don't be so vague. Oh, liquid Z enables the fruit to germinate. The seed to germinate. Didn't the question already state there? Okay, liquid Z is important for fruit X for germination. So didn't that already tell you that, oh, it's needed for germination? But why? So liquid Z has water, okay, to enable fruit X to germinate. Okay? So the key thing here is you must realize that it has water. So that's why I say that this paper is not that difficult. You need to base it on your a bit of inference, common sense, as well as what I've taught you. So if you have done your annotation like what I told you, you should be able to realize that okay, your liquid Z doesn't provide warmth. It doesn't provide an oxygen because oxygen is everywhere and warmth is on the beach or wherever. There must be some warmth. Okay, since the lake isn't frozen, right, or the water isn't frozen, okay, there must be warmth. It's in the sun. So the only thing it could have provided is water. Right? It's as simple as that. But this question was extremely badly done. Why? Because you did not you did not go back to the most basic. Next, explain why liquid Z is important to fruit before its leaves, like what I told you. The part whereby it says before its leaves are fully developed, we have told you that the plant is unable to photosynthesize. So therefore, it needs a source of food. Okay? Now, please do not tell me nutrients. Nutrients is very vague. I do not want to see nutrients. If it's food, be confident. Put food there. In fact, that's what the seed leaf is for. Just in case you don't know, stop confusing seed leaf with leaf. They are two very different things. The seed leaf, alright, provides the seedlings with food until the true leaves appear. Okay? So therefore, liquid Z provides food for the seedling until okay, its true leaf have appeared and is able to make its own food. Okay, this is very important. So, in other words, your liquid Z is acting like your seed leaf. Alright? And that is something I need you to recognize. Okay, moving on. (31) The diagram below shows two similar plants. Okay. When I look at plants, the first thing that comes to my mind is, okay, is it repro in plants or is it photosynthesis? Well, one of it has got to be tested, right? X and Y. Both plants were grown outdoor in the same location and watered daily. Okay. When the fruit started growing, plant Y was covered with a box that allows some light to pass through. Okay, you need to be very careful. So whenever you see two diagrams next to each other, you need to compare and contrast in your annotation. I told you this before. And whatever you realize that is different is probably an issue or something that you need to state in your answers. You have to address that. Okay, now, some of you did not read the question carefully. The question told you that some light is able to pass through Y. But you wrote it as no light. Okay, you all would say things like, oh, the plant Y was unable to receive any sunlight. Hence, photosynthesis cannot happen or did not occur. Or you say, plant Y did not receive any light and hence rate of photosynthesis decreased. So if you think about what you say, it's contradicting in that sense. No light cannot have photosynthesis, but yet you said that with some light, rate of photosynthesis decreased. Can you see that is such an uncalled for mistake? You need to be careful and annotate carefully. That's one. The next thing, you see, whenever you talk about light, straight away, right? Okay, so we've compared already, right? So this one is full sunlight. Okay, this is actually some light only. So we know that this one has a higher amount than this. Okay, so my arrow is smaller. That's how you can annotate very quickly. So you already know already, there is a comparison. So it's a question that requires you to write in the superlative, to use superlative terms. Higher amount of light. So, but what does this light then translate to? Remember, whenever you see light, straight away you have hinted you to photosynthesis. That should come right up your mind. So with a higher amount of photosynthesis, higher amount of sunlight means higher amount of photosynthesis, which also translates to higher amount of food. And then higher amount of food means there's higher amount of excess food being transported to the fruits. Right? Later on, this part is important. Let me explain to you why. Okay, so let's see. After a few weeks, the farmer removed the box and observed the fruits of plant X and Y. State the difference in size, okay, between the fruits of X and Y and explain why is there a difference in their size. So you see, they are talking about the fruits. Now, where does photosynthesis occur? Photosynthesis occurs in the leaves. So if you just say, oh, rate of photosynthesis is higher, hence more food is being produced, you only answer up to here and all your food remains in the leaves. It doesn't make sense to me what? If it's going to be stuck in the leaf, it will not affect my fruits at all. It will not give me bigger fruits. You realize that? So that is why the last part here, more food is being transported to the fruits in plant plant X compared to plant Y is very important, which many of you have left out. Do you realize that now? Because if you don't mention this last part, everything is just stuck in your leaf. And I'm not finished yet. Some of you tell me, oh, because this part over here receives less light, so because they receive less light, that's why rate of photosynthesis is lower, and hence no excess food gets transferred to the fruit. They already told you that there are fruits. That means food is going to be transported to it. It's just that it's smaller. So be very careful about what you're saying. It's not no, it's lesser. It's superlative term, which I've told you 101 times. But then again, you don't seem to be aware. Okay, so you need to be aware of this kind of superlative term. So let's move on to see what happens. Okay, so the fruit of X is bigger than Y. So Y, okay? So straight away jump in. Okay, so I'm going to use different colors to show you different points. So plant X. Okay, one thing, if you are talking about X, can you please all talk about X? Don't halfway talk about X already, then switch to Y. Let me give you an example, okay? I give you the positive example first. So plant X is able to get more light than Y. Hence, rate of photosynthesis is higher in X, resulting in more food being produced. Therefore, more food, okay, can be transported to X, to fruits in X than Y. So can you see, look at my superlative term. It is very, very, very clear. There is no ambiguity. Can you see how the flow goes? And because I annotated over here, the structure of my answer is very clear. Now, what do I mean by don't switch back and forth? So let's just say you talk about fruit X. The fruit of X is bigger than Y. So then you continue to talk about X. Plant X is able to get more light than Y. Hence, the rate of photosynthesis is higher than in X, okay, resulting in more food being produced. Therefore, more food can be transported to fruits X than Y. So I know that you're always talking about X in comparison to Y. But some of you, right, you tell me X is bigger than Y, then you flip it around. Plant Y is able to get less light than X. So sometimes it's a bit hard for the examiner to read, and it can even confuse you. So the rule of thumb is try and actually answer, okay, with one reference. If you're talking about X, just use X alone. Alright? Next. Now, a young plant grows and is connected to a parent by a special stem as shown in diagram below. So they tell you already, the young plant is unable to make enough food. This is the highlight of it. So unable to make enough food means what? To survive, it must get food from somewhere, right? Don't know where, okay? But the important thing is you need to get food from somewhere, okay? And then they tell you it is dependent on the parent plant for food. Ah, okay, there you have it. Now, the farmer damaged part of the special stem and the young plant died. So, the fact that you know that you need food, okay, now tells you that probably it was the food carrying tube. They ask you which part of the stem. A lot of you told me the special stem got damaged. Hello, they never ask you which type of stem got damaged. They ask you which part of the stem. So ask yourself, what part of the stem have you learned? Is it that difficult? There's only 2 parts of the stem that you have learned, right? To be very honest, if it's not the xylem, then it's the phloem. Okay, otherwise known as your water and your food carrying tubes. What is so difficult? But you choose to say very generic, statements like, oh, the special stem. That's not going to earn you any marks. You do realize that, right? So, it's really about going back to your basic knowledge. This paper is not difficult. It just requires you to really apply your basic concept. Okay, so because the phloem is damaged, it's not able to receive food, or food cannot be transported. Now, remember, I always tell you this. Don't say I never say. I repeated myself 10 billion times before your prelims. Whenever it comes to a transport function, you must put the word transport there, and you must tell me from where to where. That was something that you didn't say in many of your answers. You just tell me, oh, plant cannot receive food. Huh? Can you please be more specific? So you have to say something like the first part, the phloem or food carrying tubes of the special stem has been damaged. Hence, food cannot be transported from the parent plant to the young plant, and then causing it to die. That's it. What is so difficult? These are all common things that I keep teaching you, right? This paper is not difficult. This paper just requires you to apply what you already know. But yet, I don't see all this application. Okay, moving on in 3, 2, 1. Next, while taking a walk in the garden, Amy saw 2 animals, Y and Z, living in a pond. Okay, so they are living in a pond. Means that they are in the pond, literally inside the pond. Okay, now, parts A and B help animals, okay, X and Y to survive in water in a similar way. State what parts A and B are and how they help animals to survive in water. Now, for this question, right, you need inference again. So you think about it. They already tell you that they are similar. Some of you had to go and tell me A is they are the gills for A, and then B is some other weird other things again. No, they are both gills. It's as simple as that. If you can identify one, which is this, right? Something that you already know, these are gills, right? Hello? How is this a fin? You know, some people tell me, oh, fins. Nope. Okay, these are gills. The fins are over here. Okay, so these are gills. If you can see, these are the filaments. Now one learning outcome that you need to know is you need to be able to recognize the respiratory organ of a fish, which are gills. So if you can recognize this, and they tell you that these two are the same, okay, A and B, so they must be gills. It's as simple as that. Full stop. 1 mark, half a mark. Then after that, you have to explain to me how do they help. So the key word here is survive. And you know, to survive in water, right? What's the function of the gills? For gaseous exchange, right? Very good. So if you mention gaseous exchange, okay, I've given you the mark. But when you think about it one step higher, survive. What do all living things need? Air, food, and water. So there's already water there. The gills don't help them eat. So what do the gills help them do? Take in air. So what component of the air? Oxygen. Correct or not? Oxygen, O2. So that is the key idea. So the gills, they help to absorb, dissolve oxygen. Okay? So, once again, it looks scary, this question, but it's actually very simple. Next. This question, another question that was very, very poorly done. But it shouldn't be the case. Because they all fall back on your prior knowledge. Just because it looks new doesn't mean it's new. Amy also saw plant X and plant Y growing in a pond. She learned that plant X is a flowering plant. Okay. Highlight that. Okay. And plant B, and when part B splits open, there is some feathery substance inside of it. What is B and the feathery substance in it? Okay. Listen, students. Already they tell you that this can split open. The word split. So when you think about it, which concept of reproduction in plant did you learn this word split? Explosive mechanism. Right? This is where you came across this word split. So when the pod, okay, when the fruit pod splits, okay, through by explosive action, the seeds will be dispersed. So that means part B must be a seed. Part B must be a fruit, and then after that, what is inside it? The seeds. The feathery substance must be the seed. Not very difficult, what? When you think about it in that way. So some of you actually mistook it as a flower. I look at this. Which I don't know. Okay? Doesn't seem like a flower to me. Okay? Now, then after that, never mind. Some of you got this correct. But you don't bother to make reference. You just went fruit and seed. So, may I know, are you talking about part B is the fruit? Or are you talking about the feathery substance being the fruit? You are literally asking the examiner to guess. So, in marking, right, usually when that happens, we will read from left to right. So we will say, okay, so if we happen to see fruit first, okay, we will think that, okay, this person is talking about B. And then if we look at seed, okay, this is talking about the feathery substance. Okay, fine, you get it right. But that's not a good way you need to be specific in making reference to what you want to say. So basically, if you want to say that, part B is the fruit, you literally have to spell out part B is the fruit. Full stop. Oh, teaching English class now. Okay? Feathery substance is the seed. Okay? Or maybe are the seeds. Because plural, right? So please be clear. Amy noticed that plant Y only has leaves and did not have parts similar to B of plant X on it. She immediately concluded that Y is the non-flowering plant. Do you agree with Amy's conclusion? The answer should be a very direct no. I mean, seriously, you look at your trees outside, do they flower all the time? Even your apple trees, which is obviously a flowering tree, your orange trees, doesn't mean that, they flower 24/7 one, There are periods where they don't flower. Okay? Or they could have been a young tree that doesn't flower. So, in this particular question, you have to answer it using life stages, life cycle of a plant. You should focus your answer towards that and not so much of the seasonal part. Why? Because actually the so-called seasons, right? What happens is that the plants or the trees, they have seasons due to the temperature, water conditions, weather conditions, as well as certain chemicals that is released in the air, okay, signaling all the trees to flower at one time, or all the plants to flower at go, because you remember some trees only have the male part, or some trees only have the female part. So in order to successfully reproduce, the two types of male and female trees needs to flower at the same time. So they need to release chemicals in the air to signal to each other. But this was not taught to you. So you cannot write that unless you are very good and you know how to explain the whole scenario. So the easiest one and the most direct one is to explain it in terms of life cycle. So all you have to say is, no, plant Y might be at the stage of a young plant, and at this stage it will not be able to have fruits or flowers yet. It's as simple as that. But no. Okay, once again, you did not apply what you learned. Okay? So answer no. Why? Plant Y may be at the stage of a young plant, hence it will not be able to have fruits or flowers. Okay? So you notice once I explain it, then you're like, oh. Okay. 33. Study the picture below. The fly lays its egg, on rotting food, where the eggs then hatch into maggots. Okay? Give a reason why the fly lays its eggs on rotting food. So, already tell you, right, is food. So, why is to provide what? The young with food immediately. Okay? So, it's very straightforward. When the eggs hatch, the young will have food, and they don't have to go around looking for it. Next, This is the one whereby many of you did not do well. Okay, I'm going to break this down in a few parts, and you realize that some of your answers are really quite far-fetched. Now, the diagram below shows the flower of plant X. Now, if you are quite, well-read, and your parents have brought you, encyclopedias, you will have recognized this flower as the Rafflesia. Okay, so you do know that this is known as the rotting flower, and it's the biggest flower in the world, in the entire world. Okay, it can be found in Malaysia. Okay, so the main idea of this is that the key idea of this is that it's got a really strong, pungent, decaying smell. This is also known as the dead man's flower or the corpse flower because it's really smelly. Okay, now even if you don't know that, good if you know. If you don't know, you're just going to have to infer from the question. Now, flies are observed to be attracted, okay, by the flower of plant X. What sort of smell must the flower have to attract the flies? Explain how the smell helps in the reproduction of plant X. Now, here's a few things. Let's break it down. Let's talk about the smell first. You know what some of you did? One good quarter of you wrote sweet smelling smell. Excuse me, already they told you here that the fly is laying its eggs on rotting food. So because it's laying its eggs on rotting food, and that is what it attracts it to it, don't you think it's only logical that the flower must have a similar smell to your rotting meat? Yes, right. So even if you don't know that this is the Rafflesia and it's got a very strong, pungent, decaying smell, you should actually know that it needs to be rotting smell and not sweet smelling smell, like what you're saying. Okay, totally off tangent. Then after that, let's talk about the second part that talks about how it helps in the reproduction. Now, you are attracting this animal to it. Now, whenever you want to attract insects or animals, there's only two processes that needs it. It's either your pollination or your dispersion of seeds. Now, in this case, you're talking about a flower, going towards a flower, okay? Not a fruit. So it cannot be dispersion of seeds because the seeds haven't been formed yet. So this must be pollination. Right? You think about it. Not dispersal of fruits or whatever. Okay? And when a lot of you talk about this part, right? Guess what? You all didn't mention the word pollination. You all started to describe the process of pollination. You say, oh, it attracts the flies. Then the pollen grains will land on the body of the fly, and then the fly will go to another plant. What happened to the part about the pollen grains landing on the stigma of another plant? The half of it is gone. If you do not have that stamina to finish the whole entire definition of pollination, then the word pollination needs to be there. Or at least the word pollinate, the process needs to be there. But no, you choose to start to say things like, oh, pollen grains will stick onto the body of the fly and the fly will go to another flower. But that's not pollination, what? The fly going to another flower is just the fly going to another flower. So, it didn't, the pollen grains never land on the stigma. You never tell me that, which is the definition of pollination. Okay? So, how would your answer look like? It's actually very straightforward. The flower must have rotting smell. Okay, follow what was given in the question. Okay, pungent smell, decaying smell, okay? And then after that, what's the second part? You must tell me that the flies are attracted. So flies will be attracted to the flower and help in pollination. So you see the process was at least stated here, which is the fallacy of most of you. Just tell me, oh, stick onto the body but then fly to another plant. So, okay, moving on. Alright, 34. The graph below shows the amount of digested food in Mr. Chan's blood in a day. Okay? So, be careful. It's amount of digested food in the blood. Not in the stomach. This time it's in the blood. So, think about it. How does it get into the blood? It gets absorbed in the small intestine into the blood. That's the time whereby, you will actually get into the blood. So you look at it, right? Okay, so this is a trend question. I tell you, trend question sure come out one, no you'll see. So true enough, this other Pppp1 paper, okay, basically had trend questions as well. You need to describe and justify. Now, first question. Name the human system that helps to transport the digested food. Now, some of you actually told me digestive system. That's not right. The key idea here is transport to all parts of the Mr. Chan's body. So it should be circulatory system, isn't it? Very straightforward. But some of you got thrown off by the word digestion. So you tell me digestive system. No. Digestive system is to break down food into simpler substances so that it can be absorbed into the bloodstream via the small intestines. B. Based on the graph above. There you go. State what happens to the amount of digested food after each meal. Explain your answer. So, a lot of you tell me decrease. A lot of you tell me decrease. Really? Really? Take a look at here. You start eating. Okay, so if a Pac-Man is here, this is Pac-Man. I'm going to draw Pac-Man here. Okay, or attempt to draw Pac-Man. Okay? So you start eating here. You do realize that it is going up, right? Before it goes down. You don't tell me, wow, you eat for so long. Then you think about it, wow, the minute you eat your food, it goes straight into your blood, is it? You think about it, if this was really to happen, okay, after each meal, right? So you're thinking, oh, eat finished already, then the after starts from here. So you're telling me that it's as if I have a bucket over here, okay? As I pour water in, the level of water will increase. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. It takes time for your food to be digested and then to be absorbed. So if you take a look at the graph, you had breakfast here. Your blood sugar level actually increases after every single meal. Do you realize that? And it only decreases after some time. Right? So you see two trends over here, increasing and then decreasing, and this is after. Right or not? So there is increasing and then decreasing, and then you eat again, then increase, then decrease. Then after that, increase, then decrease after each meal. Okay? So what happens? Okay, so you have to talk about it. But immediately after each meal, the general trend is to increase. So you have to tell me, okay, the amount of food in the digested food in the blood will increase. And then after that, okay, it will start to decrease. Why? Because it's being transported to all other parts. Okay, so what am I looking for? So the first part, talking about trend. Okay, the amount of digested food in the blood increases after each meal. Okay, then after that, what's the second point? So increase already, right? Why? You have to explain why. So the second point is to explain to me how come increases, right? So what happened is the digested food in the small intestine, because that's where complete digestion happens, enters, okay, is absorbed into the bloodstream. Hold on, and is then transported to all parts of the body. Causing the blood sugar level to decrease. Okay, so the first part over here talks about why is it increasing. So your blood sugar level increases because food after being digested, okay, is going to be absorbed into your bloodstream. So that causes a spike, which is over here, your spike over here, okay, when it's doing the absorption. But then it went down again because it is then transported to all parts of your body. So it goes into your cells. So let me just change this blood sugar level to give me a second. Hold on. It's not wrong, it's correct. It's just that it's a too high level answer for you. Let me change this, causing the amount of digested food in the blood to decrease. Okay? Complete the diagram below to show how digested food is transported to all parts of Mr. Chan's body using the word shown below. Hey, this is very straightforward, okay? So the digested food goes into the blood in blood vessels. And then it will go to all parts of the body. Now, the problem is a lot of you forgot to put your arrows. Okay? It is very important to put your arrows because they mention arrows over here. Okay? No. Okay. No. Okay, I'm going to finish this off before I give you a break. So this will be the last question for today. Now, study the diagram below. Okay, Jimmy observed air bubbles forming at the beaker of the water, which is over here. Okay, when he heated an empty beaker. So straight away, you will have realized, okay, that this air bubbles over here, the source of it came from your test tube, which is actually the air over here. So there is actually a heat source right over here. Okay, and we know that the air is getting heated up. So I want you all to think, if something is getting heated up, what happens to it? It gains heat, and then more often than not, it will expand. So when it expands, it increases in volume. So when it increases in volume, there's not enough space in the test tube to contain all the expanded air. It will be forced out or pushed out, causing the bubbles to form. Okay, so most of you got this right, except that you're not careful. Okay, so what am I careful? Certain keywords won't stick. For example, gain heat from where? So, air in the test tube gain heat from the heat source. Okay, and expand dirt. So when they expanded, right, the volume increased, correct? A lot of you never tell me that there is not enough space or there is no space. So that point is actually crucial. So because there is no space, okay, so there is not enough space in the test tube for the air, hence the air is forced / escape through the tube into the bigger water. Okay, through the tube into the water. Okay, forming the bubbles. Okay, this question is ridiculous. Some of your answers are so ridiculous, right? I cannot fathom why you would say such things. Okay, let's look at it. Jimmy was given a cloth and a container of ice cubes. Okay, so you have two items here. Cloth, container of ice cubes. Using all, the whole thing is all these materials, without turning the test tube over, he was able to make the water in the beaker enter the test tube as shown in the diagram. Okay? So the question asks you, suggest what did Jimmy do with all the given materials, okay, to cause the water in the beaker to enter the tube. So if you take a look at it, you know initially, okay, the air expanded. So the air took up all the space. That's why the water couldn't enter. So in order to make sure that the water can enter now, you must shrink the air. So how to shrink the air? You basically need to contract it. Remember, when something loses heat, it contracts. Just like your railway, your tracks on a railway, it contracts, becomes shorter. So if you can chill this part, you'll be able to get the air to contract. And here's the common error already. You tell me air is compressed, which is not correct. It's not correct. Because in this case, was any force applied onto the air to squeeze it such that it compressed? No. A lot of you, 90% of you wrote compressed. It's not compressed. We are testing, the concept that this question is testing you on is actually contraction. Not expansion, not compression, but contraction. Because why? They told you ice water. That is the big hint here. So some of you very cute. You tell me things like, oh, submerge the beaker of water into the ice cube. But you're just making the water cold, not making the air cold. If not, then you'll tell me things like, oh, put the ice cube here, and then put the cloth over here, wrap it up. Okay, that one I still accept, fine. But actually, okay, what you could have done, because they say all right, I assume including the container of ice water, you are supposed to dunk the water, the piece of cloth into the whole pail of ice water, whole beaker of ice water, and then wrap it around. So what happens is that now your cloth is filled with all the ice water. It's very cold. It will actually cause your air to lose heat very quickly and contract. Okay, so that is what happens. Okay, so what can you do? So you would need to wrap, okay, wet the cloth with the container of ice water and wrap the test tube with it. Okay, that is what you need to do. Now then they say, Jimmy observed that after some time, the water stopped entering the test tube and there was still some air. So some of you say that, oh, can be compressed to the maximum. Once again, it's not compressing. It's about contracting in this case. So you just have to tell me the air in the test tube stopped contracting. Right? That's it. D. Explain why the water cannot fill up the test tube completely. Okay? So, basically, you have to tell me that the air occupied space. And is unable to escape. Okay, because it's trapped there. Right? That's it.